Could you tell us what kind of communications you've had with European Union officials since your comments yesterday to U.S. media to avert a crisis in a new showdown and a souring relations between the United States and the European Union over Greenland?
I've been traveling, so I haven't been in touch, but I spoke to President Trump, and evidently there are a lot of inbounds, and I think everyone should take the president at his word.
Does that mean the...
Next, I'll take it right here. Laurent with AFP.
The European Union, well, two questions if I could. Can you confirm that the President's letter to Norway and then the EU might be preparing retaliatory measures over Greenland? Are you concerned about what that could mean?
Yeah, I don't know anything about the president's letter to Norway, and I think it's a complete canard that the president will be doing this because of the Nobel Prize. The president is looking at Greenland as a strategic asset for the United States. We are not going to outsource our hemispheric security to anyone else.
Retaliation by the Europeans? How concerned are you
today, guys?
How concerned are you about retaliation? Excuse me, about the Europeans? This question.
I think it would be very unwise.
A fresh warning from Washington as tensions rise between the United States and its European allies over Greenland. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says it would be very unwise for European nations to respond with retaliatory tariffs to President Donald Trump's threatened trade measures. Bessent was also asked about reports that Trump linked his Greenland stance to not winning the Nobel Peace Prize, following a message sent to Norway's Prime Minister. The Treasury Secretary said he was unaware of the contents of that message and dismissed the idea outright, calling it a complete canard that Trump's position was motivated by the Nobel Prize. The comments come after Trump announced that starting February 1st, the United States would impose a 10% tariff on goods from several European countries, including Britain, Denmark, France, Germany, and the Nordic nations, unless Denmark agrees to cede Greenland. The threat has drawn sharp criticism from U.S. allies, with accusations of economic blackmail and warnings of retaliation.
I also made it very clear that we are open for this kind of discussion. We are pragmatic, cold-blooded Scandinavian people with a warm heart. But it is not easy when we wake up every morning to new threats. Please convey that message to the president. And therefore, for a second, I thought, we have managed not to solve the problem, but to find a pathway forward. It was disrupted by the statement from the president, and that's a reality of life. And that's why it's so important that all our allies in the NATO alliance and the European Union stand up for these principles to show the American president, you have a desire, you have a vision, you have a request, but you will never be able to achieve that by putting pressure on us. That signal is of crucial importance in order to, I would say, to push the Americans back into the meeting room as we agreed last week. I used the words surprised, and I think I will stay on that. I mean, I have no intention to escalate things. I've had this discussion with the president in my former capacity as prime minister, and it's a matter of fact that we had casualties in Afghanistan totally similar to the U.S. Casualties. At that specific occasion, he said, "You made a good argument. I want to repeat that one." And of course, I realize that the vice president said you could have done many things, proper in the past. Will that define the future? I think it gives you credit. I mean, you can always count on Denmark, as we always can count on UK. Well, first of all, my response to the Prime Minister is that we really appreciate the very strong statement for him from his side, arguing that, there are principles in life. And even though UK has a very special relationship to UK, which I acknowledge, especially after Brexit, there are red lines which can't be crossed. This is a matter of basic principles, and we are living in 2026 where you can trade with people, but you can't trade people. And listening to a UK Prime Minister who stands up for that principle is very, very important. And then, of course, I realize you can't leave anything out until the President himself have decided to leave anything out.
The last days have also seen increased pressure on Denmark
and Greenland. We will debate this later this week, but it is important to say this. The European Union supports Denmark and the people of Greenland, and we do so united in our resolve. The measures threatened over the weekend by the United States administration will not help improve security in the Arctic. In fact, they risk the opposite. Greenland and Denmark have both made clear that Greenland is not for sale and that their sovereignty and territorial integrity needs to be respected. And that fact will not change. When we welcomed the Prime Minister of Greenland to this chamber only a few months ago, we told him that when the people of Greenland look to Europe, they will find understanding and partnership. I reiterate that now. Because, friends, I know many here believe in the transatlantic relationship, in our partnership with the United States. I know many people in the US share that belief too. We understand the need for Europe to take on more responsibility when it comes to defence and security, including doing more to protect the Arctic. And we have boosted defence measures and spending as a result. We know that transatlantic and Arctic security can be achieved without the destabilising impact of calling Greenland and Denmark's sovereignty into question, or through measures like tariffs. We know that every serious global issue we must address is better faced when Europe and the United States act in sync with each other.
Concernant donc le Groenland, les États-Unis d'Amérique franchissent un nouveau seuil de coercition. Le président de la République suit la situation de près, vous le savez, et la France prend au sérieux d'éventuelles menaces sur la sécurité de l'Arctique. C'est dans ce cadre-là que les militaires français sont actuellement sur place. Par ailleurs, vous le savez, un Conseil de l'Europe extraordinaire se tiendra jeudi, avec bien sûr la participation de la France. Et des échanges à tous les niveaux auront lieu cette semaine, notamment dans le cadre du forum de Davos.
Now, once again, to impose additional tariffs on selected countries in Europe, we are in agreement there must be a united, a coordinated, but also a clear response from Europe. The message that is absolutely unmistakable for me is this: we are not going to allow ourselves to be blackmailed, and we stand together in Europe, united in solidarity. We also possess a very broad portfolio of different options to react to the threats from President Trump. That's always assuming he actually puts these tariffs into effect. Here in the European Parliament, we have the tariff deal that needs to be ratified, that needs to be approved. For now, that's completely on ice. We have decided on countermeasures in the European Union, which we also won't extend, and which can then come into force at the beginning of February. I want to tell you my firm conviction once again. I am a firm believer in free trade between the United States and Europe. I am convinced we shouldn't have these tariffs at all. That's what I stand for. But if now, in response to us standing up for Greenland, for Denmark, where it's about territorial integrity and state sovereignty, if we are punished for that, then for me, a limit has also been reached. And then we must be prepared. And you will understand that today I'm not saying this or that is it then.
But one thing must be clear. Europe must prepare for this.
We are living in one of those moments where Europe has to be strong, Europe has to step up, as I believe we both agree. We are living through uncharted territories. We have never seen this before. An ally, a friend of 250 years, is considering using tariffs. We don't like tariffs, but suddenly we don't like using tariffs as a geopolitical weapon. We don't want tariffs to be weaponized, and there mustn't be. So we had a great discussion this morning. Obviously, we're going to find ways of discussing it with our colleagues today and tomorrow.
The threats we've been subjected to for a little more than 48 hours now are unacceptable. Le Las has spoken. I'm talking about menace. We must do everything to prevent this menace from becoming a reality. And the best way to achieve that is to show that the European Union is ready to react, ready to present itself united, together and strong. We have the instruments at our disposal, as you know, the trade agreements, the tariffs, and why not also the instruments of coercion, anti-coercion. In any case, the threats that have been issued, the coercion, are clear examples of...
Europe understands, and we understand in Ireland, that we can achieve so much more when we cooperate, when we collaborate, when Europe and the United States work together. It's good for the EU and it's good for the US. It's President Trump who in recent days has decided to threaten Europe with additional tariffs, ones that have a very significant destabilizing effect. The destabilizing effect could potentially be enormous. The cascading effect could be very, very significant. So now is a time for cool heads. We have worked in good faith with the US administration to put a trade agreement in place.
Enfim, creio que temos de ser bastante fortes na resposta. Nós não estamos agora apenas a falar de uma guerra comercial, como falávamos há um ano, em que os Estados Unidos tinham uma posição sobre a necessidade de tarifas, a Europa tinha outra posição, enfim, discordávamos, foi possível chegar a um acordo, mas estávamos apenas, e isso já é importante, mas apenas a falar sobre comércio internacional, aplicação de tarifas e equilíbrios. Aqui estamos a falar de uma coisa completamente diferente, que é a violação da soberania de um Estado-membro da União, e, portanto, a resposta da União tem que ser uma resposta de muita força.
As Greenland becomes an unexpected focal point of global diplomacy, the standoff highlights growing strains in transatlantic relations, where trade, security, and sovereignty are now tightly intertwined.